I'll be talking about the book Pollution is Colonialism by Max LeBrun. The main reason I picked this book was from the title Pollution is Colonialism, because it is a strong and specific claim immediately set up, which pollution being colonialism is something that feels so separate from what many would consider, me included, to be pollution before I read this book. This book is primarily about how modern, and thus Western science, because yes, the Western civilization and continent did colonize everywhere. Thus, we've taken over the dominant science, and colonialism are intertwined, and uses the example of pollution science to illustrate this point. From this, they ask, how do we work in anti-colonial methods to remove what colonial aspects of modern science there are? There are a lot of individual cases brought up that support the claim of the book, but here's two. First is the foundational theory of threshold limits made by settlers, allowing them within American law and within countries to use the land as a sink for pollution, thus seeing the land as theirs to do with as they please. Second is the point of scale of influence matters. While we as individuals do contribute to pollution, the mindset that we can change the world and change climate change if we recycle and live sustainably ignores the problem that most pollution is caused by massive corporations. Or, to put this metaphorically, the steps of a mouse are hard to hear over the steps of an elephant, yet we complain about the steps of mice in our walls. Now, something I thought that was interesting about the book was that laid out in the acknowledgments and throughout the rest of the book, there are footnotes at the bottom of each page, because, to quote the author, no intellectual work is authored alone. Many people built this book, and instead of throwing them on the back, they lie beneath what they helped build, visually being the foundation to the rest of the page. Additionally, this adds to the book's ethical mindset of thinking holistically, and that every part of the whole should be acknowledged and be thought of in mind when making a decision. This kind of thinking was never something that I had even really thought about, because I feel like I skipped those footnotes that were just crammed in the back. So there were never in mind to think of who was influencing me while I was writing this book. And moving forward, it is definitely a writing style that I look forward to writing in my papers, my books, if I write a book, anything. The main conclusion of the book is to think holistically, that every piece is important as another with relation to scale. To work not with those who hold the power, but to work with those who are affected by it, and to not just acknowledge whose land we reside on, but work with direct thought of how do we treat the land fairly and respectfully. What I found most useful about the book was its applicability to the science field, with the author being the director of the Clear Laboratory. They went in depth with their lab procedure and how they conducted themselves in and out of the laboratory. Everything felt extremely personally relevant, with how they conducted themselves with the fish they were dissecting for plastics and how to dispose of them, and questions of if a chemical has been used in science to dissolve calcium carbonated shelled animals, the chemical being potassium hydroxide, should be continued to be used in the lab, since it is taken away to chemical processing facilities that would likely dump it into the land, which is something that I must now question myself. Would I recommend this book to everyone? I would absolutely recommend this book to other scientists, philosophers, and anyone in the academic field. I think that for the public, it would be understood, but the value that can be taken away from it is limited, since past chapter 1, it largely talks about the science field and how to amend colonialism rooted within. But for academics, and scientists especially, its value and applicability shines through in the explanations of conduct and laboratory and how to respect the land.